Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm not going to take up too much of the team's time. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone here in the room in NAM and to all our friends online. Hello. And a really special thank you to all of you who took part in conversations with the students and informal interviews, and also have showed us around the city. We've been to Melbourne Zoo to meet the threatened team, the threatened species internship team, which was fabulous, Mount Rothwell. So many of you have been so generous with your time, and we're very, very grateful. So thank you. As part of Rendari's commitment to supporting the next generation of change makers, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with the Worcestershire Polytechnic Institute students over the past few months. They've brought such curiosity, heart, and insight to the work. And I know many of you have felt that too. And a lot of us are going to really miss you. If you'd like to know more about the global programme, please feel free to talk to Lorraine, Mark, and Jono, who are in the room today, or send me an email because it's fab. And if you can support it, you definitely should. They're fabulous. After each of the presentations, we'll take questions from the room. And for you, those of you online, please pop questions in the chat and we'll do our best to incorporate them into the conversation. Thanks again, everyone, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Kate. So real quick, I just want to reiterate, we are a group of students from a US-based university here as part of our graduation requirement project, working on something outside of our typical field of study to develop a better understanding of the holistic systems that we'll be working in the future. So my name is Ty Busak. I'm a computer science major.
I'm Pablo Guerra. I'm an electrical and computer engineering major.
I'm Avery Ravdu. I'm an actuarial math major.
And I'm Peter Roth. I'm an aerospace engineering student.
And this is our project. We are evaluating the impact of trust-based investment. Before we get started, we ask that you all take a moment and consider the traditional custodians of the land we today call Melbourne, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We pay respects to their people, heritage, traditions, culture, and elders past, present, and emerging. Thank you.
So everybody here can agree that the environmental crises, whether it be an increase in extreme weather events, the rising sea levels, an increase in threatened species, you name it, we're all worried about it. And it's great that we're worried because the environment is our life support system. Without it, life as we know it wouldn't be the same. Well, luckily for Australia, about 70% of Australians said that they were concerned about the environment in a 2024 survey conducted by the Australia Institute. So great, people are concerned. Unfortunately, despite this concern, a 2022 survey conducted by the ACNC expressed that only about 2% of donations to all NGOs in Australia went to specifically environmental NGOs. So great, people are concerned. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a gap with the donations.
So you're probably hearing these statistics and you're thinking to yourself, okay, the solution is just to invest more money into the problem. This would definitely help, but it's overlooking a fundamental flaw in the way we think about the environment. Studies have shown that linear, siloed approaches to these complex interconnected problems like environmental degradation tend to lose efficacy as the scale increases. So in order to solve this problem effectively in this critical decade, we're going to have to rethink how we define investment. We're going to have to eschew traditional hierarchical structures between funders and NGOs, and instead trust these NGOs to leverage their unique expertise to maximize impact. And we have to expand our definition of contribution beyond just funding to include other forms of support, like networking, strategic advice, and catalytic incubation of the next generation of changemakers. Taken together, we call this trust-based support. This is the model Rendari is pioneering, and we believe it has the potential to revolutionize the environmental sector. So if it's so great, why isn't everybody doing it? Well, for one, not everybody knows, but for those that do, there are a few barriers to entry, the biggest of which is impact evaluation. It can be challenging to express to your supporters what's getting done if you don't require organizations to report that. And it's also hard sometimes to know what you can take credit for. If you catalytically fund an organization through its first 5 years, can you take credit for its future accomplishments? What about those accomplishments in those first 5 years? Questions like these plague impact evaluation for trust-based support, and these are the questions we set out to answer as we developed our own impact evaluation framework for trust-based support using Rendari's work as a case study.
So this brings us to our purpose and our project goal here, which is to bridge this gap by developing a framework to evaluate trust-based investment using Rendari as our pilot case study. When considering impact evaluation for trust-based investment, we knew we not only wanted to evaluate the impact in the environment, but also the environmental sector itself. So we developed 3 key evaluation components for our framework. The first are impact areas, which is how an organization contributes to the environment directly, such as restoring coral reefs or mitigating invasive species. Next, we have levers, which is how an organization supports the environmental sector, not the environment itself. So this can be things like political lobbying or environmental legislation. And then finally, we have pathways, which is how organizations collaborate and work with one another. This shows the ecosystem of environmental philanthropy and holistically characterizes what we're looking at. However, to flesh out these components, we needed a lot of data. And to do this, we developed a procedure and divided it into 3 key steps. First, we identified key partner organizations for data acquisition, and then gathered this key data through online research and in-person interviews. And then finally, we refined our analysis and visualized our impact.
Thanks. So like we said, our first step was to identify the organizations that we wanted to interview. So how we did this was through a purposeful sampling of the partner organizations that Rendari has worked with. And we wanted to look at these across all the levers that they're using to impact the sector. And then from there, we went and chose organizations that might have a particularly unique or interesting story to tell, as well as those who have a long-standing relationship with Rendari that would be key information for us to have. From there, we actually went in and conducted these interviews. So we split our questions into 2 main categories, the first of which is background and context. So this is stuff like when the organization was founded, its mission, and the interviewee's role within the organization. These questions are aimed to get a more holistic and in-depth understanding of the great work that these organizations are doing. And then our second category is Rendari support. And these are questions such as, how has Rendari supported this organization, as well as any impact stories that they have to share. These questions are aimed at the support that Rendari has provided, as well as the amazing work that these organizations have been able to accomplish. And then finally, once we had all the data gathered, we refined our components that we had showed you earlier, so our impact areas, levers, and pathways, and we created these subcategories that we are able to use. So first off, for impact areas, which as a reminder, are the ways in which an organization is impacting the sector directly, we had 6 of them: caring for country, waterways, threatened species, land conservation, marine and coastal ecosystems, and regenerative agriculture. And so for an example for this, we have Biodiversity Legacy, who works in land conservation by working to restore land into community-based ownership. And then for levers, which as a reminder, are the ways that an organization is working within the sector. We also had 6 of these. We have advocacy and policy, emerging leaders, science and research, community engagement, education, and networking. And then for an example for this, we have Environmental Justice Australia working in advocacy and policy by working to push forward legislation that would help benefit the environment. And then finally, for our pathways, which are ways that organizations can exchange knowledge and resources, we had 6 of these: funding, co-funding, strategic advice, collaborations, leadership development, and capacity building. So an example for this is leadership development. So Rendari funded a member of Land Covenanters Victoria's staff to go and attend workshops that would further her knowledge for her role within the organization.
So we have our data, but we need to properly visualize it so that we can effectively communicate it. Unfortunately, as we mentioned before, it's really, it's already difficult to understand it, much less visualize it. The impact isn't linear or isolated. It's not like a pipeline where you can say, oh, $50,000 saves 300 trees or something like that. That's not how it works. We realized that the impact is very correlated and complex. So we needed a different way to visualize this impact. And for our project, we settled on developing a network map, which we will demonstrate for you now.
Here we are. This is our network map.
So our network map has three main components. So we have the organizations that are represented as nodes. We have the pathways that are the connections, and we have loops, which are a tool that are going to allow us to represent the stories within these organizations. Little disclaimer, right now Rendar is in the middle. That's not the idea, but it's the organization we work with. So it's the organization we know the most about, but we'll tell you at the end how we're going to fix this. We use another very useful feature from this software called Kumu, called tags. Tags allow us to identify each of the connections and nodes to represent our different framework components. So for pathways, go to Friends of the Earth, we have tags in the connections themselves. So as an example here, wait 1 sec.
Right there.
We have strategic advice. That's one of our pathways. That's one of the way in which Rendari is contributing Friend of the Earth. And if you hover over this tag, it will show you all the different organizations that are being supported in this way. For levers, we have tags within the nodes themselves. So if you go to EGA, we mentioned that they do advocacy and policy. So if you hover over advocacy and policy, it'll show you once again all the organizations that are contributing the sector in this way. And finally, for impact areas, we have BMPA as an example. So they're working to support marine and coastal ecosystems. So if we hover over there, we'll see which organizations are supporting the environment in this way. Now we're gonna use the feature that I mentioned called loops to tell the stories about how these organizations work together to support the environment. So first, we're gonna tell the story between cool.org, the Conversation, and Biodiversity Council.
So just for some context, cool.org is an organization that develops educational programs for primary schools in Australia. The Conversation is an independent news group that does research-based research and reporting. And Biodiversity Council is an expert group that provides a ton of strategic advice for environmental organizations across the sector. So Rendari had worked with all three previously, and in a meeting with the Conversation had facilitated a connection between the Conversation and Biodiversity Council, simply suggesting a talk as experts in the subject matter. From that meeting and a couple other connections, they connected with cool.org and developed the War on Waste educational program, which is a program with over 50+ modules dedicated to pollution management and waste management. What this story really highlights is how trust-based investment has this sort of ripple effect where just the tiniest bit of investment can lead to a much greater impact than what we would have previously thought. Just suggesting a meeting has led to the development of this massive educational program and is a key, unique feature of trust-based investment.
Great. Now we'll tell the story of the origin of a Nature Impact Collective. So in 2023, three philanthropic organizations, Rendari Philanthropic Trust, Upuri Palpon Foundation, and Gumtree Foundation, came together to realize that there is something that we need to do now to act for the environment. They're all members of Australian Environmental Grant-Making Network. So they understand the importance of collaborative work, and that's why in 2024, they decided to establish their relationship. They focus on helping underfunded areas of the environment. So right now they're working on freshwater ecosystems, which is a sector of the environment that AEGN recognizes as underfunded. Since their initial foundation in 2024, they've supported 5 organizations And starting next year, they're going to support 7 other organizations, distributing a total of $3.6 million across both funding periods. What makes them unique is that all the funders in NIC are joined by common beliefs, their principles. And that's great because they understand how connecting and relating with these organizations and trusting them can have a great impact on the environment. Finally, Ty is going to tell you a story of Big Forest.
So, Vic Forests, for those who are unfamiliar, is Victoria's state-owned logging company operating largely in East Gippsland. Now, as a result of their activities, there was a significant amount of habitat destruction in that region, so a group of NGOs, about 30 in total, came together to form the Victorian Forests Alliance. One organization alone would have been easy to ignore, but together, this group of a large number of like-minded NGOs were able to put significant pressure on government officials. To further this impact, they partnered with Environmental Justice Australia, a group, again, of legal experts who do pro bono work in the environmental sector, who was able to push forward litigation against Vic Forests. Rendare's role in this is to serve as a funder for some of these organizations. They helped fund a few in the Victorian Forests Alliance, but they also, with a network of other funders, co-funded EJA, Environmental Justice Australia, during this period of litigation, enabling them to put it forward over a long term, couple of years, I believe 5. So after this, the result of these organizations working together and these funders working together resulted in something better than any of them expected. Not only was Vic Forests stopped from logging in East Gippsland, they were shut down entirely in the state of Victoria. And though they've moved a number of their operations south, particularly to Tasmania, we have a system now that we know works for taking down even large-scale government organizations that are negatively impacting the environment.
Thank you. So you might be wondering, who is this map for? How can we use it? We think of 3 potential users. The first one is Rendare. Rendare can use this map to evaluate funding gaps. So let's say they're supporting one of the environmental pillars more than the other. So one example could be here, science or research. You can see how many organizations light up. But if you go to regenerative agriculture, we see that there are less organizations lighting up. So if they want to focus on regenerative agriculture, they'll see that there's a difference between these 2 impact areas. Also, it's going to help them understand and make strategic investment based on their network. The second target would be other NGOs. So let's say I'm organizations like Land Covenanters Victoria that works on protecting land, and I need fiscal support. So I can go to the map and see which organizations are doing advocacy and policy so that I can reach out to them and have a collaborative project to help both of us have a bigger impact on the environment. And finally, to funders. And by funders, we don't mean big philanthropic groups that are looking to fund on the environment, but everyday people who want to improve the sector. How is this is gonna help them? The map is gonna allow them to see what the organizations are doing, how they're working on the environment, which sectors they're contributing, and how are they doing it. But also, this map is a visual representation of how the environmental sector is connected with one another, which gives a lot of weight to see the complexity and work that is behind this.
With this impact evaluation framework developed, we're hoping that other like-minded NGOs will be inspired to switch to trust-based support and use our impact evaluation framework to develop their own networks, showcasing the ripple effect of their work. Kate has joked that we, now having worked with them, are part of this ripple effect and could be added to the network. So for a moment, I'd like to talk just about the personal impact that this has had on us. Is it okay if I go first?
Yeah.
So I was born into a family of philanthropy skeptics, we'll call them. My parents thought socialism was the Antichrist. And once, when I donated $1 to a homeless person, somebody else in my family took $1 from their own wallet and ripped it up and said I should have just done that instead. Obviously, with this mindset coming in, I didn't have the healthiest view, but it has been nothing short of a pleasure to work with Rendare and with so many other talented groups, seeing just the genuine care and the amount of work that gets done on such shoestring budgets. I have so many fantastic stories from this work, and I cannot wait to go home and convince my fellow philanthropy skeptics that this is worth investing in.
Me? Yeah. So to me, seeing the passion and love that is behind all the work that everybody here is doing, it's been amazing. I'm from Colombia, so we're a very biodiverse country too. And there's a big gap in the environmental sector over there. I had the opportunity to work with a few organizations, and it's nothing compared to here. Seeing the way that everybody works here, how everybody knows each other, and how collectively they're having a great impact on the environment, have led me to think that this is something that can be implemented in other third world countries where we don't have the necessary infrastructure to like support the environment how they do it here. So that's been great.
For me, growing up, you always see the signs for, take your favorite philanthropic organization, World Wildlife Foundation, for example. And they say, oh, every cent of donation counts. Growing up, I was always kind of taught similarly to Ty with the mindset of what are they going to do with $1, $5? But coming here and seeing the amazing work that Rendare does and that all of their amazing partner organizations do, I realized that it's not just about the money, it's about the faith that we're providing them. And yes, at the end of the day, money isn't what matters. It's the people who are working in that organization and who have such a passion for the work that they're doing that matter.
For myself, as I mentioned before, I'm an aerospace engineering student, and the fellow engineers in the room will kind of understand just how linearized our way of thinking is taught to be. Every problem we get is like, oh, you're given 7 variables. All right, use these 8 equations to plot a rocket's trajectory through the air. And the group and the professors can recall me at the beginning of this project being like moaning and groaning, there's no equation for impact evaluation. How are we supposed to do this? But over the course of this project and seeing how you don't have to linearize it, and it's actually you shouldn't, has just been an absolutely eye-opening experience. And I could not be more grateful to be on this project and to be working with Rendare on it. So that is something I have to take with me for the rest of my life.
Peter. With this, we're hoping for one final thing to happen. We're hoping that now that we've created this graph, and after other organizations create their own, they're going to come together and unite these graphs into one unified network map of the entire sector, with hundreds of organizations cataloging thousands of stories. Think about how powerful this would be in the hands of a policymaker who can instantly see the ripple effect that could be produced by a $1 billion grant. This project has got us thinking a lot bigger than we normally do, and we're hoping that with this, all of you can think a little bigger too. Thank you.
Okay, who wants to walk around?
There's questions in the chat, it looks like.
Okay, any questions in the chat? Yes. To the floor.
It looks like there are.
Yeah, give me a mic. Okay, you go.
Cool. Yeah.
Great presentation. I was wondering a little bit about, you were talking about other groups developing their own maps, and potentially, is there a way, I'm thinking a little bit about like the idea of decentralized the Fediverse and how different instances of these maps could generate a larger map. Is that how you are thinking about the possible development of this sort of technology?
Absolutely. This is a foundation. This is a first iteration. This is by no means a finished project. Just for an actual example, we mentioned Victorian Forest Alliance. That is an organization with 40 members. So if we threw all of those in there, or if they threw all of those members in there, that would double the size of the network map. And that's just one organization doing that. Imagine the other 40 doing the same. That blows up the map to an entirely new scale, and just keep adding on to it. And you're going to have this massive web that is absolutely a phenomenal tool for anyone who uses it. Yeah. What? Oh, for a politician? Yeah. Well, that's also another thing, is trying to figure out which organizations are reputable and know who does what, which is another feature of the network map. We mentioned how you can filter by these impact areas and levers. So say a politician wants to know, oh, who's doing waterway restoration? You can immediately see that in the map. And we hope that it lands in some of those hands and maybe some governmental work can come of it.
Yes.
Thank you. It's very exciting. Like Jono, I'm full of questions. I'm going to contain myself. I'm from another NGO, another environmental organization, the Port Phillip Eco Center. We do a lot of reporting to a lot of different partners, our members, our volunteers. My question, therefore, is in the storytelling that these organizations on your map do, how much did you have to excavate, I suppose, to understand these stories through interviews? And are the people, all of those dots on the map, are they already doing storytelling that helped you put the map together? Or is there something else that we need to be, how we frame and tell our stories, either framing or content?
Yeah, I can take that. So for a lot of the organizations, we acquired these stories via in-person interviews, and often they were pretty lengthy, about 60 to 90 minutes, where we were specifically targeting what pathways and levers they were doing, but also what stories did you have to share? And in that case, we wanted as much detail as possible. So in terms of reporting for stories, I think the most valuable thing for us was impact reports that organizations are putting out, particularly ones with specifics of these meandering stories regarding like how the money was put forward, what the projects looked like, and especially what other groups they were pulling in. So does that kind of answer your question?
It does. And then my other question was, did you get a sense of time? So the stories, you said a few different loops. You talked about the 5-year litigation. Did you get a sense of time when we do annual reporting or impact reports? It might be in a very short time, but some of these stories that you demonstrated through the map might be a very long time window. So did you get a sense of, are all of them very long-term stories? Did you get any sense of those timescales?
Some were definitely quicker than others. The VFA litigation, I think, was our longest one by far. And for those, that was where the interview was really helpful, to have somebody who had worked at the NGO for a long time to chronologically dictate exactly what had happened. That would be a little more challenging, I think, to capture in an annual impact report. But maybe organizations with those longer term goals could think about that and change the way they're doing that impact reporting to reflect something like that.
I think what we wanted as an organization was a way to visualize this ripple effect that we talk about a lot. But for my work, I wanted a database and I wanted impact logs. So as you could see when the students were going through the stories of the map, impact logs are built in there. So every time you click on a connection, a story pops up. So that's going to be a piece of work for us to do, is to continue on with the upkeep of that and maintain those stories. But the exciting thing is that a piece of work next will be to integrate this map with a CRM so we can do that more easily. And the team presented to the Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation last week, and they were really excited by a CRM integrating with this and how they can start to visualize things a little bit differently in terms of impact evaluation as well. So a really useful tool and lots more to do. And we interviewed, I think, 16 organizations, and another part of the project will be to get that timeline in there. So these impact logs will also evolve to have the timeline, so we can start to map that as well. Anybody else before we move on to the next team?
Hi, just a question about trust. So you're talking about trust-based philanthropy and trust-based impact. You've done an amazing job building this this visualization of all the relationships that form. But I'm interested, both because you're coming from outside Australia, a new country, and you're young people, to reflect on and perhaps talk about what you've learned about trust trust between relationships, trust between people, and trust in the work that those organizations are doing.
Yeah, so through our interviews and through discussions with Kate and Jim and just everybody that we've worked with, it's been really amazing to see how this trust-based support really allows for these organizations to put the money where it should go. I think somebody made the comparison of, we can fund somebody to save 10 koalas, but do we know how to save the koalas the right way? Or are we better off giving the money to the experts who know how to save the koalas, and then they can potentially save 50 or 100 koalas with that same amount of money? Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Perfect.
And I just wanted to say that all the images from in the presentation were taken by Pete. So the students have been really enjoying Australia, not just working hard here in North Melbourne, which is really lovely. And I must say that you have been an absolute pleasure to work with, and what you will take back with you, and the way you've been discussing how you will now embed philanthropy into your own lives is the project. I mean, we couldn't ask for more than that. That's absolutely fantastic. So thank you all so much. Thank you. And we'll move to the next.
Okay. Because it highlights for the speaker, the speaker. We can move it, but it's if you move the podium here. Yeah, probably easier to start. Yeah, you're.
Can't see you.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
if you want, we can probably move the podium this way and have it do that, but we had it. Do all the way. So it's okay.
We can all just go
we
and
just-
walk out like that.
First thought we were gonna say, oh, sorry, outside the screen here, sorry, but we're just fine, but.
We tested the video, the audio works.
Yeah, we did it.
Okay, you guys. So here, what we'll do is, we'll just whoever, just shift around here as you come around, so that way you can be up here.
I mean, I'm fine just standing right here. Yeah, that works too, as long as like people can see, you know?
Yeah.
But you guys, I got one. Who goes after me? It's me, then you. Actually, you guys pass that one around for your name. Also, say your major as well. Yeah, first. I was just going there. All right. Everyone all set? All right. Our project is improving data management and member experience for Land Covers Victoria. My name is Henry Wright. I am an aerospace major from WPI.
I'm Kai. I'm data science major from WPI.
I'm Connor Piles. I'm a computer science major at WPI.
And I'm Dan O'Brien. I'm a mechanical engineering major.
We would like to begin today's presentation by saying that we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Victoria and their deep connections to the land, water, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
Today, more than 46,000 species are classified as threatened worldwide. Of these threatened populations, about 90% are in a state of decline, and as little as 1% are actually improving at all. This global trend extends to the state of Victoria, and it's more important now than ever that we give our attention to nature preservation in the state of Victoria. Just from 2014 to 2023, the number of threatened species in Victoria increased from 687 to 2,000 total threatened species. It was the same year in 2023 that state funding for nature preservation was cut by about 25%. These species that you see on the screen here are not only endemic to the state of Victoria, but they are also considered to be critically endangered. So if something isn't done locally soon, it's very possible that these, as well as many others, could go completely extinct.
So one way to engage in land conservation is through land covenants. Land covenants is when a landowner forms agreement with the government detailing how a certain property can be used. Usually this is restricting development on it to protect the ecosystem on the property. These are particularly powerful because the government doesn't need to own the land in order to protect it. And because the land covenant is attached to the land, not the owner, when the when ownership eventually changes, that land is still protected.
Our partner, Land Covenant Victoria, is taking steps to protect the nature and biodiversity of Victoria. They do this through supporting and assisting their members that own covenants on their land, helping people who don't currently have land covenants establish them on their land, and by advocating for better incentives and removing the barriers that might be in the way of someone creating a land covenant and using that to help protect the biodiversity of Victoria.
Thus, at its core, Land Covenant Victoria is all about people who care deeply about land, heritage, and the shared future of generations. It's about bringing together a growing network of landholders, traditional owners, organizations, potential policymakers, and conservation partners all together. By connecting these voices and helping from each other, it creates a sense of community. It not only strengthens this community, but also amplifying LCV's impact. And in doing this, covenanting is a powerful path to conservation.
However, LCV's previous system made supporting their community and effectively using their data difficult. Their previous system started with a Google form, this icon in the bottom left, which would take info from new members. They'd fill it out with their member information and the information about their covenant, and it would get sent to a Google Sheet. However, the Google Sheet did not transfer over the information correctly, and the fields would not line up with the correct data from the form. So someone would have to go in manually and move this data to an Excel sheet, taking up valuable time, and correctly fill out all the member and covenant data. This data was also stored separately, so you'd have to view members and then find their member number and then go view the covenants in a different page, which can make viewing all your data at once a bit difficult. They then also had a separate mailing service, MailChimp, that people would have to be added into, which once again is just adding another layer on top of an already what could be difficult process. And in addition, their donations came through Give Now into Zero, which once again is just 2 more organizations and everything becomes more spread out.
A CRM, customer relationship management system, is a way to solve this problem. So at first, it provides a data centralization platform, which actually integrate all the services Henry mentioned above, the donation of the membership data, the property data, all in one place for staff to view and manage. And it provides actually a lot of task automation, including sending mass email to the members and friends, also sending survey after holding a certain events. And in doing this, it improved the overall communication between staff, member, and friends, which actually will improve the overall community engagement within LCV. And it just overall improved the operational efficiencies of the whole organization. Instead of like spending time managing the data, they could actually invest in this time and effort into holding events, building the community itself.
So our project goal was to improve LCV's data workflow using customer relationship management system, today saving them time and allowing them to put their efforts elsewhere. To accomplish this goal, our first objective was to identify what LCV's current systems were and what the current processes were. In order to do this, we interviewed LCV staff, determined the budget for the CRM, since this is a paid service, and we finally performed a gap analysis to determine how a CRM could improve LCV's workflow. So from our interviews, we determined that a suitable CRM for LCV required 3 main things. 1, data centralization. didn't want them going back and forth between different services. We wanted all the data to be in one place, and that way it'd be more accurate if they ever have to make any changes to it. The second most important thing was an emailing service built into the CRM. Since LCV's main method of communication with their members is through email, by being able to use their data to communicate with their members, it would vastly improve their communication methods. Then lastly, a CRM required reporting and data analysis for their data. That way, the organization can actually use their data to better guide their judgment and understand how their what their community consists of. So once we had interviewed the staff and determined the budget, we then performed a gap analysis. A gap analysis is pretty much mapping out an organization's previous workflow and then mapping out an ideal workflow. And by doing both of those, you then determine where the gap is to figure out how a piece of technology, in our case, a CRM, could improve the workflow to get them as close as possible to that ideal workflow. So I'm going to show you a few maps of their workflow, but the legend is neat black. Diamonds is just a decision/flow control. Orange is just saying that this task is automatically done by a system. Pink is a task that needs to be done by someone at LCV. Yellow is a task that needs to be done by someone outside of LCV, like a member. And finally, blue is just stating when a process ends and a process begins. So these are simplified. We move some of the words for what each task is, but this is their workflow for adding a new member previously. So this is mainly data entry, and as you can see, there's only one task that's automated. So a lot of this data entry had to be manually done. And this one task that was automated actually did it wrong. So some of these tasks was fixing that mistake. Obviously, you don't want to mainly do data entry. That's a simple task in which better to be automatically done. Ideally, as you can see, most of the tasks are now automatically done. Since it's data entry, most of it's done. But for some tasks like phone calls, you don't want a robot or a machine doing that. You need that human touch. So that is still done by someone at LCV. So moving forward, we had, next slide, we had then used that same methodology for LCV's entire workflow, mapping out their previous workflow. As you can see now, a lot of it was still manually done. And in this simplified version, only 2 tasks were automated. That's a lot of work to do. And they would rather use their efforts elsewhere. And in LCV's case, this was a part-time employee. So they're spending money to do all of this work. Ideally, they wanted a lot of it to be automated, as you can see, much more orange instead of pink. And this will allow them to instead put their efforts on maintaining a strong community and building their organization rather than moving data back and forth and maintaining their information.
So our first objective was to try and figure out what LCV required from a CRM. Our next step was to figure out which CRM could provide that to LCV, to take the needs of LCV and say, which CRMs can fill these gaps, automate these processes, and centralize all their data. That brought us to this deliverable, which was our CRM comparison table. We evaluated 9 different CRMs, shown right here, against their cost and different features that LCV required. So we just had like a check if they had that feature or no check if they didn't. Cost was obviously a very important thing. We were given a budget of 100 AUD per month, which some of these just were too expensive and that's why they were ruled out. However, we settled that ChiliDB and Airtables were the best fits for LCV and their members. They had a cost that was within our budget and had the majority of the features that LCV required. We should also point out that these yellow ones right here, Monday.com, Salesforce, and Lightning Group, also contained a lot of these features, and maybe we're just lacking something that LCV alone might have needed, or their price was too high. But however, for other NGOs looking to adopt CRMs, the green and the yellow are all very suitable options.
Moving forward, we decided that ChiliDB and Airtable are two potential candidates for the CRM system. So at this step, we actually had to create and initialize a prototype system for LCV based on both of this platform. And to doing this, we had to first create and transfer dummy data into their platform. And we actually had to evaluate and confirm tasks building their CRM using their free trial version to see whether they have the appropriate functionality that meets LCV's need. And as you can see here, this is the more deep down comparison between the two, between Airtable and ChiliDB. Overall, ChiliDB just had the most desired features within the budget, and it has the other integration, including MailChimp and X0. It also have the other integration needed for sending email collecting surveys. And overall, we decided to move on with ChiliDB as the most appropriate option over Airtable. And after confirming ChiliDB is the appropriate option, we purchased a concurrent license from ChiliDB. We built the server further down. And this is a brief demo of the final ChiliDB product.
Hello, everyone. Here we can see the standard dashboard of ChiliDB, which is a homepage that you'll see when you log in. We can also click here to see the visualization dashboard, which shows us different visuals that we've created or different charts that we've created via our data. If we click here on the top left, we can view our contacts by clicking search. From here, we can click all and see all of our contacts, including members, staff, and friends. Under organizations, we can click search, and once again, filtered by all to see different organizations such as covenants and other organizations LCV might work with. If we want to click on events, we can go down to the events calendar and view all of our upcoming or past events. And lastly, we can click here on surveys and click search surveys to see the different surveys that we've created, such as the new member survey, which gets automatically sent to all new members.
Our final step was migrating data and creating documentation for the use of the CRM system that we provided LCV with. This step consisted of us making an instruction manual for them to use that will detail exactly how to do just about any task that they will need to perform within the system. We then conducted user testing where we were essentially just testing for how intuitive the user manual we provided them with was. And finally, we migrated all of their data over from their previously used Excel sheet into the CRM. This here is just an example of what that instruction manual looks like. On the left is just part of the table of contents. That can just show the extent to which we covered all of the tasks they may need to perform. Any header in that table of contents can also be clicked on, and it will take you straight to where you need to be in the documentation, just adding to the ease of use of the system. And on the right is what the individual instructions actually look like. They usually start with a brief explanation of the task, followed by screenshots of what it looks like in ChiliDB, with red arrows showing you exactly what you need to click on. So there's really no room for error there. During user testing, staff members of LCV were provided with a login to the CRM, as well as the instruction manual we had created. We gave them tasks one by one from that list of tasks on the right there. And we had them try to the best of their ability to complete that task using just the instructions that we gave them. A lot of them, they did perfectly fine and there was no issues there, but if they ever got stuck, we took notes of that, showed them how to do the task themselves, and then we updated the documentation afterwards, just to make sure that the instruction manual we made is easy to use for the people who are actually going to be using. And finally, we migrated all of their data into the CRM using the CSV file data uploader that is built into ChiliDB. And this data consisted of about 200 members and 150 different covenants.
Okay, so the point of this project wasn't just to implement CRM. The point of the CRM is to allow LCV to grow as an organization. Their previous system, the more members that join, the more covenants that enter their network. There's been so much data and been impossible to be able to keep track of that with the previous system going back for 3 different programs. And so by using this new CRM, they now have the capacity to grow as an organization. And with the automation, they can now focus on community engagement and they can now better communicate with their members by using the email system inside the CRM. And we're hoping that using this CRM, LCV will be able to be empowered to further their mission in protecting Victoria's ecosystem. If any NGOs watching are curious about our process for figuring out what CRM best fits for LCV, our full detailed report will be available on WPI's IGP website at a later date.
We would like to end off today by saying a special thank you to our partners, LCV, Diana, and Louise, as well as Rendare and Kate. You guys have given us a bunch of wonderful opportunities while we're here, and we've truly felt welcomed. This is an image from our camping trip up by the Wahkul River. And I would like to say thank you to everyone that attended today. This has been our presentation. Any questions? Anyone online? Oh.
Last group talked about how this work had sort of, influenced them as individuals and how they might take this into their future, this experience, their future careers as engineers. Do any of you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak on that. For me, it's allowed me to see much more of the bigger picture. I'm used to seeing job, task, make something work, next task. This allowed me to kind of see beyond that to the bigger picture of what that result could then cause down the road. So while yes, we were just creating a CRM, that is kind of allowing LCV to expand their membership, contact more organizations, and kind of further their goal of protecting the nature of Victoria, which is something that isn't just a CRM. It's much more of a result of a pure technical task that has a much broader social aspect to it.
Kind of similar to what Peter said before, where engineering things are so like linear. It's very different doing sort of social work because there isn't just an input and an output. With engineering, you make something that does what it's supposed to do and it doesn't break and you're good to go. With this, I mean, you kind of have to do the same thing, but it's also based so heavily in the preferences of the people that you're making it for. So it's very different because it's for a particular group of people and they're going to use it all the time. So you have to make sure that you remember that it's for them and you're not just making something that works, because we could do that without ever meeting them, but it's about making something that actually works for them. Oh.
So this isn't a question, but more just an acknowledgement of how valuable that work is. So as a peak body who has a big CRM system for more than 650 members and 20,000 households, the gift you have given this organisation so that they don't have to put all of their part-time hours into data entry, that really does feel exhausting and not in pursuit of their mission. But to create a foundation that ultimately has that legacy of a user manual that feels very rare that a not-for-profit organization can stop and really invest in that to be able to take off from. So I guess it may not, from an outside, see like the sexiest project, but actually it fundamentally is of such value that I really just wanted to say, great job and what a gift.
Thank you.
Very much.
That's our hope, is that it's a very big first step for them to be able to expand a lot as an organization, just giving them a system that's more sustainable than what they had before, so they have room to get a lot bigger and make a much bigger impact.
And real quick, thank you to everyone who's leaving the nice comments on the Zoom as well.
Can you hear me?
It
It goes into the Zoom, it doesn't.
Do I have to press it or can you? Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, you're-
Yes, I worked with the team and I can say it was one wonderful team of guys. They did the fantastic job. They listened to us and worked out what we needed. And people don't realize that with an organization like us, we have to kind of know, connect with Aboriginal groups, with what they call CMAs, catchment authorities, councils, and the data that this system is storing will basically be able to help us in managing our connections with those sort of groups. And also as well as our members. And no, it's a pleasure. I thank you guys a lot.
Thank you.
It's been great working with you too, Diane. Oh, we
I've got a
messages.
speculative question. I can't ignore the fact that we just had a presentation that talked about building out that network and connecting it to a CRM. Do you have any thoughts about how best to go about that work? And I'm partly thinking about the conversation that Kate and I are likely to have in the coming days